So, the second last chapter of General, General Anthropology by Nadeem Hasnain. Chapter 12, Concept and Definition in Tribe. What is tribe? What exactly one the criteria for considering human group of a tribe? What are the indices of a tribal life? Interestingly, but sadly, the anthropologists, sociologists, and social worker administrators, such other people who have been involved with the tribe and their problems, either on theoretical plane or on a particular grounds, practical are still not on the same wavelength regarding the concept and definition of the subject matter. Author Wilkelat puts the problem in a proper perspective by stating that of years ambiguously the stated stalked India's official portrait of tribal people from 1917 to all 1931 census. For instance, the nomenclature referring to the tribes underwent the successive modifications, involving primarily in changes in descriptive adjectives such as aboriginal and depressed classes. By the 1941 census, these qualifying adjectives were dropped. A practice continued after independence with the adoption of the notion of scheduled tribes, as they are commonly called Adivasi. Such a standardization did not, however, remove all ambiguity. And no doubt, with the passage of time, the differences on the concept and definition of a tribe have certainly narrowed down to the appreciable extent, but a theoretical discussion seems imperative to understand this problem in a proper perspective. Here are a few definitions of tribe being used as the basis of discussion in the present chapter. And that a tribe of collection is a family bearing a common name, speaking a common dialect, and occupying profession to occupy a common territory is not a usually indigenous, and through originally it might have been so. Imperial Gazette of India. A tribe is a group of people in a primitive or a barbarous state of a development, acknowledging the authority of a chief and usually regarding themselves as having a common ancestors. In its simplest form, the tribe is a group of bands occupying a contiguous territory or territories and having a feeling a unity deriving for numerous similarities of culture, frequent contacts, and a certain community of interest. A tribe is an independent political division of population with a common culture. A tribe is a group united by a common name in the which the members take pride by a common language by a common territory and a feeling that all which do not share the name as outside enemies is in fact by JWB. A tribe is a social group such as territorial affiliation and indigenous and with no specialization in functions ruled by tribal officers, heredity or otherwise united in languages or dialect. So that dialect are recognizing social distance with another other tribes as caste without any social obligation and attached to them. So as it does. So as it does without any as it does a social obligation attaching to them, it does the case structure following tribal conditions and beliefs and customs liberal of the customs liberal of most naturalization of ideas and from alien resources and favor all consciousness of the homogeneity of ethnic and territorial integrations. Ideally, tribal societies are smaller in scale and they are restricted in spatial and temporal range of their social, legal, and political relations, possesses morality, and the religion and the worldview to the corresponding dimensions. Characteristically, two tribal languages are and unwritten, and hence the extent of the communication both in time and space invariably narrow. At the same time, tribal societies exhibit a remarkable economy of design and heavy compactness and self-sufficiency lacking in a modern society. Mazumdar 1967 rightly comment that when one looks into the definition given by the various anthropologists, one is bound to be impressed in the dissimilarity of their views regarding that constitute of a tribe. Kinship ties, commonly territory, one language, joint ownership of a whole have seem referred to the main characteristics of a tribe. Some anthropologists have not only not accepted some of the have characteristics, but and also strongly denied that some of them to be characteristics of a tribe. Thus, Rivers did not mention habitation of a common territory as a vital feature of the tribal organization, although it's the like Perry have instead of it and saying that the even and nomadic tribes roam about within a definite region, and Radcliffe Brown has given instances to one section to tribe fighting another from his Australian data. The only conclusion that one can draw from such a delivery of a learned opinion that the views of each anthropologist arise from the type of data which is most familiar. One may therefore make a list of universal characteristics, some of which define a tribe everywhere, and thus Majumdar claims that universal applicability of definition given in the preceding page. A major hurdle in defining a tribe that related with the problem of distinguishing the tribe from the peasantry. It is no doubt that possible to use the label tribal and peasant as type of social organization and the characteristic for another contrasting for the other. But in spite of all the effort invested in anthropologists in the study of primitive societies, there really is no satisfactory way of defining a tribal society. What is amount to Indian context is that anthropologists have tried to characterize a somewhat nebulous sociologist by contrasting its another who is almost equally nebulous. Earliest anthropologists had not paid sufficient attention to the definition of tribal society, but tactily assumed that they were studying in Australia, Melanesia, and Africa were various forms of tribal society. The tribe was somewhat vaguely assumed to be a more and less homogeneous society having a common government, common dialect, and a common culture. Andre Vidal, 1973, though not everybody will agree with the assumption of a Vidal, but his statement may be acted as one of the several schools of thought grappling with the problem. So above discussion shows that it's not easy to define a tribe or tribal society concurrently, and any standardization of this regard is very difficult to obtain. Hence, it will be better to shy away from the international universal frame, keeping in view this is a condition consider a tribe and focus attention on gaining a standardization within the Indian universe to solve own problems. This seems to be quite consensual in the situation when definitions of universal applicability either they're very broad and loose or very narrow and restricted. In the context, Andre Bitilish Abid aptly remarks that the Berlin and perhaps only anthropologists working in the Indian fields have tried to characterize the tribes in terms of secondary principles, but the contrast in which we are interested is not between tribe and peasant, but between tribe and caste. Further, like whereas the majority of Indian anthropologists have not given much serious thoughts in problem of creating definition of tribal society which will appropriate the Indian context. Now let us examine the problem specifically in the Indian context. T.B. Naik raised that the problem it is proper perspective talking of the criteria and indices of the tribal life, specifically in Indian setting. What should be the criteria and indices of tribal life? Living in forest, the criterions indices of tribal life that doers of the Surat and the host of others do not live in the forest. They live in the fertile plains. Nevertheless, they are included in the schedule and primitive regions. And that, but do you know that why what the primitive region is in India? There being continuous from the most abstract philosophy to the tribal gods and superstitious beliefs in the religions of most of the advanced communities in India. That thus index being very fluid and not exact will not do geographical calculation, and the hundreds of tribal groups are who are not living in an isolated life that primitive economic system. There are many peasant groups who are living to equally primitive economic system. That Naik and just goes to honor present on the who criteria tribe which are follows. The tribe to be a tribe should have the least functional interdependence with the community. The Hindu caste system is an example of high interdependence. It should be the economically backward, and which means the full import of the monetary economies should not be understood by its members. Primitive means of exploiting natural resources to be used. The tribe's economy should be at an underdeveloped stage, and it should be multifarious economic pursuits. They must be comparative and geographical isolation people from others. Culturally, members of a tribe should have a common dialect and they may be subject to regional variations. The tribe should be politically organized, and its community panchayat should be influential institutions. A tribe's member should have to at least desire to change, and they should have a sort of psychological conservatism, making them stick to their old customs. And the tribe should have customary laws, and its members might have to suffer in law court because of these laws. And Nike further elaborates that a community of a tribe must have all its attributes. It must be undergoing accumulation, but the degree of acculturation will have to determine its context of customs, good language. A very high degree of acculturation will automatically deviate from being a tribe, and if it elaborates some of its points already described, a community, however small it may be, remain in isolation from other communities within a geographical region. This applies to caste as well as to a tribe. Members of a true tribe however, generally not included in the traditional in Hindu caste hierarchy and frequently speak into a common dialect. Indian common beliefs and the following common occupational practices. Most important, consider themselves members of a small but semi-national unit. I would delete in the above definition of the word that primitive means an underdeveloped stage and substitute them by the word self-sufficient of Khasi, Gonda, Bhil, Agaria, and how to impart more specialized economically and even of non-tribal neighbors. Though each individual is a tribal, may work as his family member group and may remain functionally dependent on the tribal other members. It is seen as how far individual lives in a solidarity in tribe and as a whole rather than a co-partner and the caste hierarchy. I agree with the definition of geographical isolation and now not very isolated unit of people and santas, but it drives its own system of economic solidarity. No doubt it is most stable. Common dialect of a language is typical in tribes, Assam in the central areas and northern and southern western Asia, western states of India. Community of languages stresses that the but a non-independent building of tribal consciousness. The original religious concept of most tribes pre-accumulation Buddhism, Hindu, Buddhist, and Muslim or Christian neighbors, but are not always as now. A tribe need not always be politically organized, nor it's a community panchayat, maybe or not have a single chief or field elders, so less power like the community. So I would delete the relevant para of the above and substitute with the words the members of a tribe having a feeling of belonging or group existence, which is valuable. Almost all tribes having customary laws practices more or less different from non-tribal neighbors. Very often they are indeed very suffered on account their low codes and the contact situation with the non-tribal. The Tata Institution of Social Sciences, its report on the Indian tribe that joined the ideal physical tribe communities conceived by the anthropologists related to the communities that have been included in the list of scheduled tribes. And North of Belkin and the like some others, one of the measures that if not a sustainable measure discipline of anthropology, Ayyappan provoked by such statement remarked there skeptically, reminding the well-known definition given by the Tata Regan of species, adopting the definition of Ayyappan and said the tribe or group which is a competent anthropologist container of a tribe. If the administrator wants to clear-cut definition which we can blindly, despite such rhetoric academic polemics and the problem definition of a equate of substantial reason and standardization has been accomplished by designating people not entitled to particular protection and privilege. This could become a possible only if vigorous academic efforts, much amalgamized, misunderstood anthropologists who that help to rigorous in the painstaking and empirical research ultimately came out of definite empirical, verifiable anthropological data to clear co-ops of the Indian tribes. And Majumdar demonstrated a new mood of emphatically and stating the following facts. In tribal India, a tribe definitely a territorial group as tribe has traditional territory. Immigrants always refers to it their home. Santhas working in the Assam tea gardens refer to particular regions of Bihar, Bengal at that time. Home and all members of the tribe are not kin to each other, and with the Indian tribe kinship operates as strong as associative, regulative, and integrating principle. The consequence of tribal endogamy and the division of tribe into clans. Members of Indian tribe speak one common language, their own or their own neighbors, and an inter-tribal conflict of a group scale is not a feature. Indian has joint ownership of property and wherever they present it, for instance among he is not inclusive and the government particularly there is a number of panchayats and correspondings, and there are other distinguished features of India. The tribes there are dormitory institutions, the absence of institutional schooling of boys and girls, distinction customs regarding birth, marriage, and death are moral definition from the Hindus and Muslim peculiarities of religious beliefs and rituals may be distinguished tribals from the low caste Hindus. To win this discussion seems to be quite apt for the Arthur Wilkettel, who organized the constraints of bureaucratic decision making and the administration regimes supreme, and there is a tendency to gloss over the rich and the times puzzling the mosaic of human affairs. What accounts of determination of the concept of tribes likely to delicates of bureaucratic procedures and easing the accumulation going to identified make people difficult to apply in India, which is in many respects ideal from type formulation. This chapter is completed. We will start our next chapter after some time. Thank you so much.